That's cool.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry for the delay. I'm trying to play. Having the computer is giving me grief. I'm trying to pull up our topics. Someone has it.
There, I have it.
So what's next?
No.
I just last one, but I think you're
Still-
still on the holidays.
Still on the holidays. Okay.
So she said it's the last one she remembered was Shmini Atzeret.
We need some Kusar also, right?
And Simchas Torah, yeah. And
Okay,
then
Hanukkah the first time.
So what's next?
Tu B'Shvat.
Yes, okay. Okay. So let me say. So let me go back and just sort of.
If needed.
Maybe you can hold on to it. If you're taking notes on it, just have it. So,
Yeah, it's just more just
So, yeah. Oh, that's good. So, okay. So like a few. Okay. So the Torah. Let me say something. I want to say something which I'm not sure has been clear enough. I think just about holidays, and then we'll go on the list of holidays first. Okay. When the Torah describes Shabbat and Yom Tov, Shabbat and the holidays, Torah says there's a prohibition against work on Shabbat and Yom Tov. And I think I just mentioned, but I want just to really emphasize, there are some differences between the prohibition of work on Shabbat and the prohibition of work on Shabbat. There are 39 categories of work, 39 melachot, with some categories and rabbinic extension of those categories. On Yom Tov, it's exactly the same, except the Torah says we're allowed to do that which is necessary in order to eat our meals on Yom Tov. Specifically, that means we can carry, which is a little bit odd, but that's included, but it is. We're allowed to carry on Yom Tov for the purpose of the holiday, and we're allowed to cook. And we're allowed to, therefore, also transfer fire. Okay, so that's a significant difference, and that means all the cooking, the malach of cooking, and all of the rabbinic extensions of malach of cooking, like leaving something on and covering the knobs and putting it into the oven. All those things are not applicable on Yom Tov.
Is carry relative to like the Arab?
Even without an Arab, you can carry on Yom Tov.
Yeah, so that's it. Okay.
transferring the fire, is that, but you still can't ignite fire?
Exactly. You can't strike a match,
Okay.
but you have a candle burning, you can have like a 24-hour candle or a 48-hour candle. You can light a match from that and then use it to light your pilot light if you have if that's how your stove works.
Okay.
Or light whatever else you want. But light your barbecue,
Okay.
right?
Can you only transfer fire for food's purpose? Or like I know people
Yes,
smoke
only for
cigarettes.
food. So that's so the answer is you're allowed to transfer fire for the purpose of anything that is the term used in halachic literature is hana'al hashaveh l'kol nefesh, which is something which everyone enjoys. So 50 years ago, everyone enjoyed cigarettes, so clearly you can do that. That's probably not true anymore, so it's probably no longer permissible. It would be a biblical violation of transferring fire to smoke a cigarette on Yom Tov because it's clearly not something that everyone, most people don't enjoy cigarette smoke. On the contrast, in the Middle Ages, people said, well, showering is only something that some people like to do, and so you can't, ignite a fire for the purpose of, can't heat water for the purpose of showering. I think if you shower every day or most days, you can probably shower again. But certainly if you get to a point where you're sweaty and dirty and you're not going to feel so good if you don't shower. So I would say shower again. Although I just read something on some online magazine about this guy. Could be Atlantic, maybe. It was somebody said, I haven't showered and I stopped showering and it's great. And you sort of.
Oh my gosh.
At first you don't smell so good, but then once the natural ecosystem on your skin returns, the smells,
I don't know about that.
you can. That's what.
Kombucha of the body.
It's like the rifters. That's what they do.
Yeah.
What's
Anyway, what was that? So showering is okay if you're sweaty and you feel yucky. You can shower. Using hot water heating water is permissible against use for that. And smoking, I would say, is not. But otherwise, you can cook, etc. So that's a big difference. So when I say Yom, so what are the holidays where there are prohibitions against work? So those are in Israel, first day of Pesach and the last day of Pesach. Outside of Israel, the first 2 days of Pesach and the last 2 days of Pesach. So day 1, day 7. And outside of Israel, day 1, 2, and day 7, 8. On Sukkot, in Israel, the first day and the 8th day, Sukkot, Shmini Atzeret. And outside of Israel, day 1 and 2, and day 8 and 9. Okay, so it's Pesach, Sukkot, and Shavuot. In Israel, only 1 day of Shavuot. Outside of Israel, 2 days of Shavuot. And then Rosh Hashanah, 2 days everywhere, Israel as well. And Yom Kippur, 1 day. So those days, no work. Just like Shabbat, except we are allowed to cook and we are allowed to carry. Yom Kippur actually is more like Shabbat. Yom Kippur has also the Shabbat restrictions. You can't carry Yom Kippur without any of it. Yes, right.
Yeah, so in Sukkot you can actually, I believe you can actually smoke insofar there's an existing flame and you would just be transferring.
I just said that that's probably no longer true.
Oh,
Because
okay.
it's only permissible to extend a flame if it's for a benefit that is universal and everyone agrees.
Okay, got it.
So 50 years ago, everyone liked to smoke, and that was probably true. I'd say today, since there are most people, I think, find the smell fairly offensive and they don't like it, I think it's no longer permissible for anyone to smoke, because you're only allowed to do the malacha of transferring fire, the labor of transferring fire, if it's for something like everyone appreciates cooked food, and so you can transfer fire to cook food. Everyone appreciates, I would say, having a shower, and so you can transfer fire to have warm water to bathe in. I think most people don't like smoking, so I don't think anyone can smoke.
Okay.
I think probably can't smoke even non-immunity. I think it's probably a Torah prohibition against endangering your health. I think there's certainly a prohibition against starting to smoke if you're not already addicted. Somebody who is addicted, maybe there's leniency. I'm not sure. In the 60s and 70s, there were some great rabbis who wrote about smoking, and they said, yeah, you shouldn't smoke, but you shouldn't start smoking, but it's not prohibited if you're addicted. But I think we actually know a lot more than we did then about the dangers of smoking, and I think a number of people have written recently that it's really to smoke always. You know?
Okay.
So it's common in many Orthodox communities. I think but there are people who dress like Orthodox Jews who violate mitzvah. Also, everyone violates some mitzvah there. So
Right.
some communities are better at, some people are better at. I think smoking is always prohibited, especially in Antifa. Okay.
Cool. Thanks.
And okay, so those are the Yamim Tovim when they're okay. The other day, right, there are other holidays though, which are not, right, the intermediate days of Pesach, the intermediate days of Sukkot, which we'll talk about, and then Hanukkah, which we already talked about. Hanukkah's a rabbinic festival, there's no work prohibition. Rosh Chodesh is no work prohibition, even though it's a biblical kind of day of biblical significance. We spoke about it, and we'll define Chol Hamoed into those intermediate days as well. Tu B'Shvat. Tu B'Shvat is coming up relatively soon, actually, and Tu B'Shvat is a day that in the Mishnah and rabbinic literature is really not a very important day at all, but has become a little bit important in like the last 100 years, or really the last 400 years, but especially the last 100 years. Tu B'Shvat is a day that is designated as the time of determining, like it's like the new year for the trees. What does it mean? Why do trees need a new year? Because there are mitzvah in the Torah that require us to know, like, when is this, which year in the cycle of the agricultural cycle is this particular fruit associated with, okay? So, you can't eat fruit from a tree the first 3 years. You can't, certain Shuma mice are taken in the 4th year and the 2nd year, right? There are mitzvah which is important to know how old, like which year we're in, and so you pick a day in the middle of the winter when nothing's growing, and say anything from this point on is from the coming year, anything before this point is from the past year. So Tu B'Shvat is not when, like, I know when I was a kid, they said, oh, in Israel, it's springtime now. Tu B'Shvat is the springtime holiday. It's really not. It's the winter in Israel also. It's not spring anywhere, but it is, like, before the spring. It's before anything's happened, so that anything that comes, we know is from the coming year and not the old year. So that's the significance of Tu B'Shvat. In the 16th century, in Sfat, in northern Israel, with a group of people that were in a Kabbalistic circle that were sort of reinventing Judaism and giving it all sorts of added meanings and nuances and layers of meaning and celebration, they made Tu B'Shvat into a sort of important mystical holiday, and they developed a practice of gathering around, eating fruit and different kinds of fruit and growth, etc., etc. I don't know how common this custom was, and I think over the coming centuries it became associated with the day to celebrate the land of Israel and the agricultural land of Israel, and that sort of in modern Zionist history has become an important tree planting holiday, like a Jewish Arbor Day, which is very nice. But there's no obligatory observance of Tu B'Shvat.
Is this like the pomegranate holiday from like?
Rosh Hashanah is really when we eat pomegranates.
I feel like
People eat like fruits of the land of Israel.
Like a new fruit.
Not so much a new fruit as much as like fruits of the land of Israel. People eat carobs a lot on Tu B'Shvat.
I feel like growing up at Jewish day school, this was like a fruit holiday. Maybe it's something else.
It's absolutely a fruit holiday, but not necessarily pomegranates. But pomegranates are one of the 7 species of the land of Israel is praised for. So certainly pomegranates too. But like
there's this one mango thing. right?
We had it like that, like, it was like you're eating like a new fruit for the first time I had all year, like
Yeah.
sausage shechiano on it.
Yeah.
It was like
Yeah.
jackfruit, star fruit.
That's what it was.
All these weird things.
Starfruit, that was what it was.
Yeah.
Okay. That stuff, yeah.
What's the significance of, like, why trees are so, because they represent life, because they.
Sure, yeah, look, I mean, look, again, the Torah has mitzvah for trees, I mean, trees
Right,
are.
that's what I'm like, someone told me that, like, it's like, a nice gift is to buy someone a tree, like, I planted a tree there.
Yeah, right, so that became, so that's, so look, there are mitzvah about everything, right? There are mitzvah about agriculture in the field, wheat, how you plant and harvest your wheat field and your barley field, and there are mitzvah about how your orchards are planted and how they're harvested, and what you do with the produce, and how you tithe it, and who you give to, and how you support the poor, and give to the Kohanim, what goes to the Beit HaMikdash. There are mitzvah about everything, including agriculture. We're a little bit removed from that because we're not farmers and we're not in the land of Israel, and so the cycle is off, and the holidays, all of these connect to the agricultural rhythm of the land of Israel, and so there's a real, there are mitzvot about the sunrise and the sunset, and there's mitzvot about our bodies, and there's mitzvot about our clothing, and so there are also mitzvot about farming and how we feed ourselves there, and how we eat food, and what foods we eat, and how we cook it, and right, there are mitzvot about everything. So trees included. I know that that's you know.
So there's nothing like.
I mean, trees are very important, and they're beautiful, and they're, you know, have all sorts of symbolism in the Torah and imagery, et cetera, but like I think. And a basic answer, I just say they're mitzvah about everything, like also trees, right? You know, like they're mitzvah about, you know, really almost everything. So in terms of planting a tree as a gift for someone, so that became in 1896, 1897, the first, the founding of, really, it started before that actually, but within the founding of modern Zionism, and the precursors as well, there was sort of the notion developed that Jews all over the world should purchase the land of Israel back for ourselves, for our people, and the Jewish National Fund was established in the 1890s, you know, to be that mechanism by which the Jewish people all over the world would raise money and use it to purchase the land of Israel, and settle Jewish people there, and build Jewish farms and towns, etc. And so in that started, you know, a little more than 100 years ago, and that's what they did. They raised a lot of money, and they bought lots of land, and some of that land they used for farms and towns, and some of that land they planted trees in. So I think that's when it became, okay, so I'll donate, you know, $18, whatever it is, it used to be $10, $7, you know, I'll donate however much money, and they'll plant a tree for me, you know, like sort of, you know, like adopt a whale or something. You know, it's like a way to, like, you know, kind of personalize the, you know, like the tzedakah, you know. So right now, JF is doing a lot more than planting trees. It's probably, I don't think they're doing a lot of tree planting. Mostly they're building desalination plants and doing like major infrastructure projects, and like, but it's still like a way in which, like, you know, the land of Israel is being built up and developed for promoting Jewish life, and so it's still a nice thing when a baby's born, you buy a tree for them, and, you know, it's like, it is a, you know, a gift for somebody who has everything.
So
buy a tree for them, yeah.
I don't know, this is something I also read that I thought was really interesting. I wanted to speak to his like thing. That like way back, a long time ago, when someone had a baby, they planted a tree, and when they got married.
Yes, that's what Talmud says. When a boy was born, they planted this kind of tree. When a girl was born, they planted that kind of tree. And when the two of them were married, they would take the branches from the trees and use them to make.
I thought that was so cool, and like no one talks about it.
Yeah, it's lovely. That's in the Talmud. That's a beautiful image, and I think it's in the Talmud. It's an old, I don't know.
I read it in like book that like had a side note from someone in it, and, and I was like, oh,
is that nice? Is that pretty?
That was really amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. Also on here it says tax.
I met somebody once.
Who had one?
She when she gave birth, she planted a tree when her baby was born, but she buried also the baby's placenta under the tree to like fertilize the tree that was planted when the baby was born. So that was like, so it was definitely inspired by this, but like a little more, you know.
That's like
hardcore, yeah. It's like, that's like the kombucha, that's the kombucha, kombucha level, that's yeah.
So is the tree still alive?
It's in Syria, like I don't know.
It's like somewhere there.
But like I know, like they all used to do it.
Oh my gosh.
Very cool, that's really cool.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. Okay, but on here it says tax day, beginning of
tax, exactly, because in other words, like it's really, like you have to have a day, like you have April 15th. Like you have to have a day.
Okay, so this is the same.
In other words, it's basically originally Tu B'Shvat is like the tax day for like all your tree mitzvah. It's like, okay, which year is it? Is this this fruit from this year or last year? And like taking tithes for this year or that year. Like,
it's a tax day.
So basically it's like a tax day that became
like
a fruit festival. The New Year for the trees really means okay, like now this tree's 4 years old. Okay, now there's the status of the
Okay.
What's next on the list?
Purim.
Purim. Oh, okay. Purim is a rabbinic holiday, meaning it's not in the Torah. It is described, though, in Tanakh, in Hebrew Scripture, in the Scroll of Esther, which is part of that third section of Scripture, right? Tanakh, the Hebrew Bible, has 3 parts: Torah, Nevi'im, and Ketuvim. The Torah, the 5 books of Moses, the prophets, and the writings. This is part of the third part, the writings, the 5, the 5 scrolls. The Scroll of Esther is one of them. It tells if you haven't read it, like certainly before Purim, you should read it. A beautiful story, well-crafted story. With a lot of drama and intrigue and suspense. It has a happy ending. The Jews are in danger in Persia. The Jews of Persia are in danger. The Jewish queen, who no one knows is Jewish, intervenes with her husband and saves the day. God is not mentioned anywhere in the Scroll of Esther, which is why it's actually great. So if people are trained to become scribes, the first thing they'll do is write a Megillat Esther because it doesn't have God's name, so the stakes are a little bit lower. And it's long, by the time you finish it, you're pretty good, hopefully. And the book itself says, at the end, it says, and we celebrate these days forever as the holiday Purim. So there are 4 mitzvot that we perform each Purim. 3 of the mitzvot are performed during the day, and the 4th is also performed during the day and at night. Okay, I'm emphasizing this because I think in our community, like the nighttime Purim celebrations, like there are like 600 people in shul on Purim night, and maybe like 100 on Purim day. But like maybe people go elsewhere. I don't know. But I'm saying it is actually like the daytime is really important. Okay. So what are these 4? The 4 M's. They all start with the letter M. I think in English they are Megillah. We have to hear or read the Megillah at night and during the day. So it's a mitzvah of the day to hear every word of the Megillah as read from a scroll. You could follow along in your Chumash, or you could just follow along listening carefully in your whatever book you have with you. But to be read from, we actually own a copy. I don't want to. Anniversary present.
G-I-L-A-H.
Sure, why not? It's written on parchment, just like a Torah. Written in similar letters to how a Torah would be written. And this is the Book of Esther, okay? One cool thing is that the first word of each column is Hamelech, the king. So that's sort of like a hidden reference to God, right? God is not mentioned in the book at all, in the story at all, but God is sort of behind the scenes orchestrating events, and so that's put into this by the scribe when he sort of spaces out his words to have the king Hamelech at the top of every single column. Like a neat trick for writing Megillah.
So Melech is king?
Yeah. You don't have to have your own Megillah, right? Most people don't own their own, but it's a neat thing that we have. Okay. That's mitzvah number 1. So it's read at night, it's read during the day. This mitzvah is obligatory for men and for women to hear it or to read it. Second mitzvah is the mitzvah of Mishlach Manot, gifts of food. Supposed to give 2 types of food to at least 1 person. Okay, so that could be an orange and a candy bar to 1 person, or that could be a giant basket of home-baked cookies and a bottle of wine, and like it could be very elaborate or it could be very modest, and just at least to one person. Often people show up in shul with like big bags of like little goodie bags, which they've put with like a few little things, so they hand out to people in shul. Often people spend the day like, walking around the neighborhood with their children and dropping off Mishlach Manot to their friends who they maybe haven't seen in shul. So they got we give out to people. I guess we give to like we make lots of bags of smallness. Our kids give to their classmates in school and to their teachers, and I give to people I see in shul that morning. People make you a list of like you're going to give to whatever, and sort of try and do that, or just randomly give to. Or again, be very mindful. Just be give to one person, you're done. Okay, it doesn't have to be anything like very expensive or very elaborate, but we give gifts of food to one another.
What is the significance of it?
The significance of it is. Let me list them, and then I'll come back and say this.
Yeah.
Okay. If I don't, remind me. Okay.
Okay.
Third mitzvah is Matznot Evyonim, is gifts to the poor. You give at least 2 gifts to 2 poor people on Purim Day itself. So if you're like worried that you might not find a poor person on Purim Day itself, maybe you live in a affluent neighborhood like Lakeview and you might not encounter a poor person in your day. So there are organizations that you can that will hopefully give money on Purim Day. So for example, the shul collects a lot of money. And we, in shul and Purim, people put money in, just in baskets, and we just collect a lot. And on Purim Day, after it's all been collected, I call the ARC in West Churches Park, and I say, we've collected $800 in cash right now. We're going to write you a check this afternoon. They're great, $800. We're going to distribute $800 to the line of people who are, who we're going to see today, to our clients. And the organization in Israel do the same thing. And in New York and every Jewish community has that. In addition to making sure that's appropriate to.
Give how much? Like to 2 people? You said one thing to 2 people.
2 gifts, at least 2 something, 2 quantity. There's
okay.
To 2 people.
But
2 blessings, like, right?
So the food is 2 foods to 1 person. The Matzah Evinim is to 2 folk who have to give away some quantity of food. Don't actually have to have 2 blessings. It's an urban legend.
Oh, really?
2 can have the same blessing. Yeah, it's not. Seems weird.
Stand corrected.
It's an urban legend. It's like a Jewish urban legend. I would say, the gifts to the poor should be the amount you spend on gifts to the poor should be equal or greater than all of your other Purim expenditures. So if your Mishlach Manot is, whatever it comes out to, $50, $100, $200, whatever your Purim expenditures are, give at least that amount to these gifts to the poor. That's the most important mitzvah. Should be the most expensive mitzvah, right? And the final mitzvah of the day is to have a festive meal. A festive meal means a meal with bread that starts before sunset on Purim Day. Like some sort of Purim feast. Significance of these, I would say, so the reading of the Megillah, that's a kind of pirsuming, so it's like lighting Hanukkah candles, it's publicizing a miracle, it's sort of thanking God in that way, it's a form of praise, etc. The others are about, it could be that it's the meal, and then Mishlach Manot is letting your friends have their meal as well, and the gifts to the poor are letting the poor have a meal as well. So in other words, it's all of us are celebrating eating food, and we're just making sure that all of us can do that. That's like a basic level. A little more advanced level is like it's about Jewish solidarity, and that's sort of one of the things that the holiday celebrates. All the Jews came together and prayed in solidarity with Esther, and we then came together and defended ourselves and defeated our enemies. And so we commemorate that day by all of us coming together. I mean, right? God's name is there in the book. It's about how we survive in a dangerous world. Well, God is behind the scenes, hopefully, and also we come together and support one another and are in solidarity with one another. And so the mitzvah of the day reinforce that type of solidarity, and gifts to the poor certainly is about solidarity, and strengthening friendship is about solidarity. Having festive meals together with others is about that as well. So that's also a theme of the day. It's a day also. So those are the 4 mitzvahs. Those are rabbinic mitzvot. Men and women are equally obligated, and all of those mitzvot have to do them during the day. And Purim, Megillah is read at night and again during the day. Also, there's a custom to get drunk on Purim. Talmud actually says one's obligated to get drunk on Purim.
It's the best part.
Some caveats on that. One is some people it's not safe to have alcohol and they shouldn't have alcohol on Purim. In fact, I'd say that the Talmudic passage, the story of the Talmud says, after the statement that one is obligated to get so drunk on Purim he doesn't know, gets confused between Mordechai and Haman, the hero and the villain of the story, then says that Rabbi and Rabbi Zera would have their Purim feast together, and they got so drunk that if I recall, it was Rabbi who killed Rabbi Zera in a drunken rage, and then he miraculously revived him. And the next year, he said, okay, so we have Purim together again. He said, no, we're not doing that again. Miracles don't happen. I'm not going to lie, miracles don't happen. So the point is, if it's not safe to drink, don't drink. Like in other words, this custom, this religious goal of getting drunk in Purim is not more important than basic safety, and it's not more important than you're still responsible. Any time you're drunk, you're still responsible for your actions. So if you do something that would be forbidden or reprehensible while sober, it doesn't make it better that you were drunk, right? So sometimes some people embarrass themselves or insult one another or harm other people or harm themselves, and being drunk is not an excuse for that. That makes it worse. And Purim is not an excuse for that as well. The other caveat is that it's a daytime. People often drink at night in Purim. That's not a mitzvah drinking. That's just secular drinking. It's during the day. Like at your Purim feast, maybe. Okay, like after you've listened to the Megillah, certainly. Okay, then you can get a little drunk. And the definition also of drunk, and the Jewish code, the law codes say you can also drink a little bit more than usual and then take a nap. And then you fulfilled not being able to do anything more because you're sleeping. Okay, so a little more than usual, which shouldn't be very much anyway. And then you take a nap, and then you fulfill this. That being said, many people do get drunk, and again, I just think there's a kind of, for me at least, personally, there's a level of what I've seen as well. There's a level of drunk where you're just really jolly, and you're less inhibited, and you sing a little bit more loudly, and maybe a little more fervently, and there's a certain type of inner sweetness that can come out with that level of drinking. And when a bunch of people are doing that together, and they're singing Purim songs, and they're making up silly poems, it's like a tradition of singing called Rabbi, these sort of Purim rhyming songs that people make up on the spot and tease each other with, or make it up about things, or that's all. That can be some of my happiest memories are those kind of Purim being that level. And then there's you push it one extra drink, and then all of a sudden you're vomiting, on the floor on your friend's couch, and that's awful. Or you're hurting someone else's feelings by saying something that really harms you, and that's or endangering your health in a really, really dangerous way, right? And there are all terrible stories every year of people who die because of alcohol-related stuff on Purim. So just I just say, not that you need this from me, but just it can be a really beautiful thing, but it can also be misused or abused or be a harmful thing, like most other, everything else. But I think when properly done, Purim is a super fun holiday. We put on in our shul, put on a spiel, a little Purim satirical play, Purim night, which is a ton of fun. There's a really talented group of actors and stuff who work really hard writing a very fun, satirical play, musical, which they present after the meal is read on Purim night. That's also a highlight of the year as well. Questions about Purim? Some people wear costumes also, people wear costumes. And all that, the drinking, the costume, but sorry, anyway.
No.
It's, because there's something fundamentally, a little bit sad about the Purim story. What's sad about the Purim story is that at the end of the day, we defeat our enemies and we're still in Persia subject to the whim of Achashverosh, who is this totally foolish king who one day hates us and one day likes us, and who knows what's going to happen next time. That's, we're living in it reminds us that we're living in a world where the most powerful man in the world is a buffoon who can be, and if you're safe, it's for a moment. Because, maybe he likes you, and, and then he changes his mind, and then everything's at risk. And that precariousness is maybe endemic to a kind of diaspora life where you can't, that's what it means, and that's what life everywhere is like. And that's a theme of the book as well. So there's a dark underside to this celebratory story, and so there's some drinking, and the masquerade and the costumes, and it's because the story itself, God is hidden, Esther hides her identity, and intrigue. So it's not just a holiday for children. Okay, it's a holiday for adults as well. There's some really adult themes as well that are explored during that day. Judaism in general is not a holiday, not a religion for children. Right? Children, obviously it is also a religion for children, but children, in children's stories, there are good guys and bad guys. And we know who the good guys are, and we know who the bad guys are. And people who do good things and are good things happen to them, and they're safe. And people who are bad things happen to them. And that's not how the world works. That's not the world we live in. That's not, in like real adult Judaism, you have competing values, both of which are good, and you have to decide between them and weigh them and balance them. And there are good people who are still vulnerable, and there are bad people who still triumph, and that's the world we live in, and we have to navigate and find meaning in that kind of world. So, yeah, sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, are there two, how do the services work? So is it like after morning prayers, then like that gets added on?
Exactly.
Okay.
So at night we say Mariv,
And
then at the end of the Mariv service we say the Amidah. We add in Al Hanisim, just like that paragraph we add for Hanukkah. That same paragraph, but the Purim version, we add on Purim night in the Amidah. And then after the Amidah, before Aleinu, before the conclusion of the service, we read the Megillah. So after it was read, we say Aleinu again. And then in Shachrit, it's like we read Torah and then we read the Megillah. As Shachrit is. Yeah, they're a good question. But it doesn't have to be. And so so there are people who, let's say, they have to be at work by a certain time, and they oversleep, they miss Megillah reading either at night or at Shabbat. You can read the Megillah on its own and still feel the mitzvah. And so we have a late reading of the Megillah on Anshe Shalom for people who couldn't make it back from work in time or whatever it was, or they couldn't be there for the initial Megillah reading. And we have, during the day, we try to have like a late Megillah. Chabad always has like a whole bunch of Megillah readings during the day for people who can't wake up in time or need to be at work too early, etc. And we try to make sure that everyone who has their needs met. So we try to have multiple readings.
Can you read it in English on your own?
No. The mitzvah is to hear it read from a scroll. So you have to hear it read from a scroll. You can follow along in English, I guess. You should read it. I would say read it in English first, like this, like now, like in advance, and then on Purim, try to follow along in Hebrew as it's read. Yes.
Is there another myth that you have to follow word for word?
You have to hear every word. If you don't hear every word, you can read it yourself from in Hebrew. If you're following along, and there's a word you don't hear because the person next to you sneezes, but you read that word yourself. So you read that word not from a scroll, from a book, that's okay. Because you can have a minority of words read from a book.
Okay.
Exactly. So since most of 99% of the words you're hearing from the reader, from a scroll, and one word that you don't hear because this guy next to you sneezes, you read from then you're okay. I once went to a Megillah reading where somebody didn't want to, he wanted to hear every word read from a scroll, so if he missed a word, or if he thought the guy would mispronounce it, he'd get up, walk across the room, and read that word from somebody else's scroll. It was very odd man. Yeah.
Is the Haman booing
good.
like a thing that's like
Yeah, we boo when Haman's name is read. It's also the villain, right? But because we have to hear every word, it's then repeated afterwards. Yeah. So it says Haman, boo, and he says, and then Haman, and then he says it again, and in case people. Right. Yeah. Or he says it and people shake afterward. Yeah.
it's pretty loud in some places.
And then you said the feet, like the other one is to have a festive meal.
Yeah.
You said something either before sunset or after sunset?
Before sunset on the day itself. It was a daytime mitzvah. So
a meal with bread before sunset.
Exactly. Again, if it's a work day, you want to have a sandwich, okay, like by yourself, like at least you fulfill the obligation. Yeah. But it's nice, like, and people who can take off, if like say, you sort of look here, like stereotypical Jewish community, Purim, people aren't necessarily working on Purim, they can take off from work, so in the morning everyone goes to shul and hears the Megillah, and then the late morning, parents and children are walking all around the neighborhood handing out Shlach Manot to their neighbors, and people come to your house, they bring you a basket, you say, wait, I have something for you, and you go back and maybe you don't have something for them, but you assemble something quickly, and you repurpose from others, and here's your Shlach Manot, and that's how people spend the morning. And then in the afternoon, everyone kind of settles down and has at someone else's house for the meal, and that's a few hours before sunset they start the meal, or an hour before sunset they start the meal, and there'll be lots of alcohol at the meal.
And that's when the drinking happens before, okay, got it.
Yeah, exactly. Any other Purim questions? What's next?
It's the Omer and Lag Omer.
Okay. What time is it?
10 after, 12 after.
Okay. Let's pause here because I have another meeting in 15 minutes and I want to end that. Okay, is that all right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. I think, is the next class already on the schedule? I think it might be.
Wait, hey,
Oh, wait.